You're in the rant wormhole where I rant about whatever my $15 a month patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by becoming one of those. This one's for Roro, who says, rant about Tool. I'm currently trying to get into it, and the appeal isn't really sticking, and you mentioned it on 2 Weeks Review, which is my patron-exclusive podcast. Tool was a foundational band for me in my musical education as a young man, and I think that if anything, is the space that they occupy in music that is of the most importance. Tool is very much a boogie pop type of band, and if you've ever heard me talk about this idea that, there are pieces of media that sort of take the weirder, more esoteric side of art and package it in a way that's just accessible enough to reach a wider audience. And I think that those types of media are what tend to draw people down the rabbit hole into getting into more, strange and experimental things. And Tool is very much a band who has done that for a lot of people because they were a major radio single band in the 90s and 2000s. Their songs are still on alt radio today, tracks like Schism, Inema, fucking Prison Sex, Sober, all amazing songs, Parabola. So, this is a band that got radio play. They have 3 tracks in, was it Guitar Hero World Tour? Was it Rock Band 2? Don't remember. They have 3 tracks in a video game. They're a big band, but their music is experimental. It has lots of odd time signatures, very different tonality to all the instrumentation, the drums tend to go into more, using drums that aren't the hi-hat or the snare or the bass pedal more, more of the deeper drums on the drum kit are utilized. You get the guitars they're tuned in interesting ways, playing complex, polyrhythms and shit. And yet, while, and also having, somewhat cryptic lyrics that you have to really read into to fully understand. But, in spite of all that, managing to package it in such a way that it's still kind of catchy and immediate and could, hook listeners in from the radio. And there are a lot of people, I understand why Tool gets made fun of a lot in music circles, especially in, metal circles or prog circles, because they are seen by a lot of people as a prog or a metal band, and a lot of people in those communities tend to disagree because they didn't do anything that progressive, and also they're not heavy enough to really be considered metal. They're more of a hard rock, whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. The reason that they get made fun of is because there's a lot of people who stop at Tool. They hear it and they think this is the pinnacle of music. This is the most creative, the most innovative, interesting music that exists. And when you encounter people like that, you always have to go do you really think that just this one band out of the ether rose and just completely came up with all this shit and it had no basis in anything? They weren't inspired by anything. They didn't, learn this from somewhere. But for me, as a teenager, the only reason I even know about prog is because there is a list of Tool's influences on their Wikipedia page. That's why I know about King Crimson, because they were listed as a Tool influence. That's why I know about some of those more experimental bands and forms of art. And Tool themselves, I think, while they might not be the most inventive band out there, there is no band that sounds just like Tool. The way that they structured their songs, the way that they tuned their instruments, just all has a very distinctive air, and it was different on every album. Even though they still sound like Tool, there's a different vibe, a different kind of energy to each of them, where their first album, Undertow, is much more aggressive and sludgy and raw and angry, but dealing with these deeper subject matters than most of what you're hearing on the radio, talking about things like, there's a song called Prison Sex that's about prison sex, and it's a very serious, very dark take on the rape culture of prison. They've got a lot of songs about difficult sexual relationships, be that darker or lighter or just in the middle. There's a lot of songs about deep emotional issues. A lot of songs about spirituality. A lot of songs about trying to find higher purpose in the universe, and always written very eloquently and poetically. And I think about a lot of their lyrics a lot of the time, particularly a song like Lateralis, which is about the need to continually to innovate, to continue spiraling out, as they put it, and trying to go where no one's been and discover the unknown, and keep pushing yourself to learn more things. And this idea that, like, following this, the whole song is structured around the Fibonacci sequence, which, like, yeah, I think that's cool. Like, it's not, if you go and, like, watch the video that explains it, or read the comments, you're gonna have people be like, oh, Tool's the most creative band ever because they used the Fibonacci sequence. No, but, it's still cool to do something that is conceptual in that way, and it works for what the lyrics of the song are, which are about starting from the origin point of when you were born and continually collecting more experiences and learning, and, and expanding your mind. And they've got also got a lot of, like, weird alien cult kind of shit where they will have songs about, like, alien encounters and DMT trips and spirituality and that kind of shit. I would say that Tool occupies a very similar place in culture as what Joe Rogan does right now, like what he kind of represents and stands for, and, like, he is that same kind of, like, he's into sort of off stuff, and he's a little bit deeper, a little more intelligent than what you might get from, like, a TV late night talk show host, but he's not, like, talking about anything new or mind blowing or crazy to people who are, maybe older and more experienced. But, like, it's still interesting in its own right that this person is talented and is, putting that to use to create interesting things. And I think Tool is the same way. I particularly love their Undertow, Inema, and is it called Lateralis? Yeah, those 3 albums are the best. 10,000 Days I wasn't as into. I was at the time. I liked it a lot at the time, but over time I've grown to not find it easy to return to. I just think it kind of feels like Tool was making an album for the sake of making an album, in a way. Like, there are a few songs that are more inspired, and then the rest just kind of feel like, Tool had to... And they also have some of the least eloquent lyrics. Like, I think the song Vicarious or The Pot have some of the least interesting Tool lyrics of all time. But they have some songs that are just the most bitingly aggressive, because every single one of their albums has one song that's just the big fuck you song. So you've got, like, the Swamp Song on the first album, Hooker with a Penis on the second one, and then fucking Ticks and Leeches on the third one. Just all these songs that are just, like, incredibly... Oh, I also love their first EP, Opiate, which is more like a straight rock grunge kind of thing, but with, again, a very unique twist on it that is the distinctive Tool sound. I love Maynard's vocals. The lyricism really is probably the thing that's affected me the most over time, because when I first, sort of how I got into analysis was through lyrics of songs by Tool and the Mars Volta and Coheed and Cambria, who are sort of my holy trinity, at least, of boogie pop bands, like bands that were on the radio, but they will take you down a rabbit hole into exploring deeper music. So, I think they're great for that. Oh, I forgot the song Inema was also one of their big fucking, that's the one about how LA is a shithole, and they want everything to drown and it become Arizona Bay. Big time drug advocates and stuff, and they're a band that writes 12-minute songs with crazy long musical passages where you might hear, like, samples from weird movies or comedian skits and shit like that, and it's just so dank and dark and eerie that their albums feel like an experience. And they're all really long, which when I was younger I tended to favor, like, 80-minute albums where the songs are really lengthy, so I can just sit there and get lost in this experience of the record. And they're great for that. Every Tool album is very mysterious until you've heard it a lot of times, and of course I've heard them all now that they are white noise to me, so I've heard these albums like thousands of times. So I don't know if it would be easy to, like, as if there was somebody who told me like, oh, I'm a big prog fan or I'm a big metal fan, I'm not going to tell you to get into Tool. If you're like, I listen to radio rock and I want an entry point into more experimental music, that would be when I'd tell you go listen to Einema and Undertow, and then work your way to Lateralis, and then then go listen to King Crimson and get really into crazy shit. But I don't know what you listen to or like that whether or not you should keep giving Tool a try. But it's definitely music that it takes a lot to penetrate. It is if you are not used to at least somewhat challenging music, it might be like, this is fucking boring. They're just playing guitars for 3.5 minutes sometimes, Or you might be like, this is fucking boring. They're not that good at guitar because I'm used to listening to jazz fusion or something. But, I like it. I still listen to those first 3 albums. I still throw them on. And I have a good time.